I'm honored to introduce to you the extraordinary National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator of SAG-AFTRA, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, who's the tech leader in our organization who helped create this event and has led us through very thorny negotiations around AI in particular. So, ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to Duncan.
Thanks so much, Pam. Hi, everybody. As you may have heard, there's a bit of an emergency going on in Los Angeles, which is where our office, our headquarters office is located, which we've now had to shut down for the day. And so I know we're all sending out our support and our love for everybody in the LA area and elsewhere in the world who are suffering right now. And there's a lot of that going on right now. And the situation is very volatile in Los Angeles area right now. So having said that, and in a moment we'll get to the rather now awkwardly named Fireside Chat, but I did want to just start out by expressing my really deep gratitude to the AFL-CIO and the Tech Institute, and to Amanda Ballantyne in particular, for their partnership on this summit and the leadership during the now many years that we've been doing this together. And when I think back on how it started and where we are today, I'm just very excited. It's now been more than half a decade that we've been doing this together, and I think it's really helped us prepare for the challenges that we face now in 2025, which is turning out to be a especially pivotal moment for labor and technology. We're already seeing how important it is that the types of relationships and solidarity between unions, union members, and working people everywhere, that they have to be stronger in order for us to stand up to the kind of corporate dominance that we see, unfortunately, these days. And I know in the coming months, all of us who advocate for working people are going to be working harder than ever. We're going to have to be working harder than ever to use the things that make us powerful, our community building, our messaging, our ability to foster relationships with lawmakers and allies to help keep us strong. And yes, we're going to face challenges, but thanks to more people having access to the tools of communication, direct access to the tools of communication, workers now know the scale of the immense profits that their employers are making off of their labor. And they're fed up with it, to be honest with you, and regardless of the political landscape, everyone can leverage the power of solidarity and unity to advocate for themselves and for their communities. And the union leaders that we're hearing from today, I think, are looking forward to lending all of our union's resources collectively to arm individuals for the fight ahead. So thank you all for being here today and being part of this important effort to make the future more equitable for working people. And the guest that I have the incredible privilege to speak with this morning in this fireside chat is going to help us navigate a lot of the apprehensions many of us are likely feeling about the months ahead. They're a Rochester-based podcaster, online personality, and citizen journalist who launched Under the Desk News on TikTok in April 2020. Their over 3 million followers appreciate how they make news media less intimidating and more accessible and frankly easier to understand. And their reporting has taken them to the floor of the State of the Union, to the sidelines of the Thanksgiving Day parade with NBC, to the dais of the UN. And last year they received a Special Achievement Webby for their concise and compassionate reporting. They currently host the podcast American Fever Dream with Betches Media. Please join me in welcoming the amazing V. Spear.
These two? Okay, I brought my own drink, because,
That was smart. I did not bring my own drink.
Well, I was like, I get nervous, so I had to have, my emotional support iced coffee. Also, Amanda, I love your boots. We're wearing the same. This is obviously the shoe of labor.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. This is exciting.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here too. And I really think, one of the things that's so important in building the labor community is making sure that the way we communicate is accessible, that the way we communicate really resonates with, our membership and our future membership. And you have a real talent for that, if I may say so. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I just want to start out by saying, for those who don't know, SAG-AFTRA had a huge strike in 2023, and V, you were one of the incredible leaders, sort of organically appeared, that sort of just appeared on the scene and helped really catalyze a level of support among creators and influencers in social media that was incredibly powerful and helpful to us. So I just want to just start out by saying that.
Thank you.
And I know you said to me when we were prepping for this, I don't want this to be all about me. I don't want to talk too much about me. So I know we're not going to do that, but I do just want to say, for those of you who haven't seen Under the Desk News, and I'm not just saying this because someone told me to watch it, I actually have been following your Under the Desk News since you started it on TikTok. If you haven't checked it out, I urge people to check it out. It's not just a name, it's a literal description of how you report the news.
I'm on the ground under my desk.
So just for a moment, because I think it actually ties into the bigger themes, like how did this approach come to you? What triggered Under the Desk News?
So before I was a TikTok sensation, V Spear of Under the Desk News, I was a chef and a caterer, and I worked in DC in very high-end social and political catering. And one thing about that is those people treat you like wallpaper, man. So I know all their secrets, all right? So when the pandemic came, I was working at the James Beard Foundation, and I was the head of women's entrepreneurship and LGBTQ inclusion and equity work. And that was, of course, the first department that they laid off during the furloughs. And so I started cooking on TikTok to teach people how to apply for PPP loan, how to apply for shuttered venue, how to sort of organize, because what we were seeing is folks like the McDonald's Corporation going in to meet with Trump about what we were going to do about restaurants, but no one from the independent restaurant world was getting a seat at that table. So I started making these videos, and then on January 6th, I was doing a meeting with the VA of Nashville, talking about how we were going to get food to unhoused veterans. And like back in those days of the pandemic, I was wearing like Nike shorts on the bottom and like a suit on the top. And so I had set up my camera, and the first video was me sliding in my Nike shorts under the desk to be like, Mike Pence, you could do the 25th Amendment. And you could be the president for 14 days. And you would just be amazing. And it was like this joke. And then my friend Randy was like, girl, you better get back onto that desk and tell people what's going on now. And it's been 4 years. So I just keep telling people what's going on. And I've won a bunch of awards for original journalism. And I've also, had beef with NPR for the last 4 days over original journalism and what is a journalist. And I think it's just, I know that communicating online or feeling like you're the right person to deliver a message can be really difficult and intimidating. But I was just some idiot cook who slid under my desk and now, spent 35 minutes with President Biden the other day. You know what I mean? Just get out there and do it. You are the right person to deliver that message, because the way you talk is probably going to be more in line with the way your people take in information than anybody with a degree or with more organizing experience or something. It's you. You're the one that should do it. So that's how I started Under the Desk.
I love that. So, but not only do you report on you've made a very conscious choice to make labor issues and workers' rights part of what you're talking about. How did that happen? Why?
Because I really want to be in a union so bad, but there's not a creators union. But I come from a union family. My brother would sit at Thanksgiving and be like, you should be thankful for me, right? Okay, lineman, or you wouldn't have any power to make this dinner. And I remember when my dad worked for Sikorsky Aircraft, they went on strike when I was first year in college, and I came home from college to go on strike with my dad. And I was so proud. It was freezing. We're from Connecticut, and I was in the snow, and I was on strike with my father, who's making cheeseburgers and drinking whiskey and having a great time on the line. I was like, is this strike? This sounds awesome. He's like, no, and don't tell your mother about this, all right? We're doing serious shit out here. But I've just always come from a place where I recognize the labor of people. My family's Albanian. We're all workers, carpenters, hardworking folks. And for me, growing up in the restaurant industry even, you see how exploited the most important and careful labor is. And so it's something that I've always advocated for. And right now I'm working with SAG-AFTRA to get a creator union sort of spec'd out. Is this something that we can do? Because when we're looking at exploitable labor, oftentimes folks aren't thinking about content creators as exploitable labor, but they are, because they create competition in the commercial space. They create competition in all kinds of places where folks don't know what the minimum standard for how they should be treated is. And because they're so new, they think they haven't earned it yet. They think oh, well, I'm not a professional. I'm just some guy. So we need to work together on those things. And that's what gives me passion about organizing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, it's the perfect opportunity for us to talk a little bit about what you did in 2023. Yeah. So I want to just share with folks. So we had actually met once at a DC function before this, but really when we started building our connection was during the SAG-AFTRA strike in 2023, and we had just as part of that strike told all of our members not only don't do any work, but don't do any promotion for any movie, any television, anything, right? And so the companies decided to start asking content creators to basically scab on that work. And you reached out to us. First of all, you started speaking out. And second of all, you reached out to us and said, hey, there is a whole community of us who aren't even members of SAG-AFTRA, but we want to stand in support with you. Let's talk about how we can do that, how we can support that. How did that happen for you?
Impulsive decision again. So I want you to picture just scrolling on your TikTok and there's like this lesbian laying on the floor who says to you, hi, it's V Spear, the most trusted voice on the internet, and you need to not do this, okay? Look, creators, you're gonna start to see emails from studios. They're gonna start to offer you everything you ever dreamed of. If you do that, that will be the first and last time you ever have an opportunity in this industry. And what we're not gonna do is step on other people's necks to like go to the Barbie premiere, all right? We're not gonna do that. And folks were like, what? And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna tell you because it happened. I actually got an email and I was like, oh shit, this is not good. And it was offering an absurd amount of money to attend a certain premiere, and it was after you had started the strike. And I sent it to my management, and I was like, I'm gonna tell people about this because they're gonna start to get these emails and they're gonna think that they're unique, but they're not. They're gonna go through the different rungs of creators and they're gonna try to replace the movie stars and A-list talent and red carpet interviewers and journalists with creators because we have big followings, and they're gonna pretend like this strike ain't happening. And what we're gonna do is say, no, we're not showing up, and we're gonna talk about why we're not showing up, what's going on with SAG, what is a SAG? Is it just for the movie stars? No, it's also for the puppeteers and everybody else and like regular folks. And there were so many people who saw that video who were not in a union at all, but there were also folks who are in SAG who also are content creators because you gotta diversify those revenue streams, And they were like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this for us when at that time there was a little bit of a rift between who's a professional actor and who's not. And I think this was a great moment of coming together in solidarity against the powers that be, and it worked. I mean, we had kids writing to me and being like, forward me their email from the studio saying what they were gonna do them and saying, I said no, V, and I would call you and I'm like, can you please call this kid? He's in Texas crying so hard. He's like really wants to believe like you have to win this strike negotiation. Like I got all these kids like promised that we're gonna win. And you would call them and like that meant a lot to them to hear from people in the movement that creators who weren't a part of the union were equally being respected and appreciated for our place in making sure that we stood as people who love the arts and love entertainment against the studios, who were just being super unfair.
I mean, I think that's really inspiring. And I think there's two lessons to be taken from that. One of those lessons is that, institutionally, unions sometimes are not the best at organically responding to things like that develop, but we need to be better about it. And I really appreciate your outreach because it helped us be better about it. And that was immensely powerful for our members and for our strike because that community of creators who went out and speak are very trusted by the people who are listening to them, and they know that this is not some marketing message that's being pushed on them. This is something that people genuinely feel and they care about, and that has such a powerful resonance. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like you said, it helped us get out the message that this was a strike about all performers, not about the tendency to view sometimes our members as celebrities, et cetera. The other thing that I just want to say from a personal perspective is literally the only TikToks I've ever made are a few dancing TikToks with my daughter, and no, you won't be able to find them, so don't even try. And the TikToks that I made to respond to creators, and this was really at your urging and the urging of Shane Griffin, who I think is here, who's our amazing person who works with creators and influencers, among other things, to do that. But I think it struck me how much that meant. And I would just say to all the union leaders here, think about this, right? Think about non-traditional ways of communicating, not just with your own membership, but with the public, and helping to build support and making sure that the the conversation that's going on out there isn't driven by corporate messaging or
it's about
media
unfairness.
machines.
It's about fairness, and that's something that everybody can understand, in particular TikTokers, where the majority of people who found success on TikTok were folks who were just regular people before, right? It was a very, it's the most like democracy-led platform of all of them. And there were certain choices we made during that strike time where I have the audacity, because I'm like really good at cooking. Like, I know I could get a job forever. I'm a fucking good chef, okay? Like, I'm good. So if I have to go back to the restaurant, I will. And I love it there. So we had to make this decision because there were some issues with attending something like the Drew Barrymore show, crossing a line. Different people from the talk shows were saying, oh no, we don't actually qualify. Do we qualify? And I kind of decided to burn my bridge at CBS and was like, I hope I get to you before Drew Barrymore has the chance to gaslight you about what's going on with the strike right now. And that became like a huge thing. But in showing people that you will do the scary thing and not just like put somebody else in front to like lead that charge, so many other people were like fortified by that. By like, we can be brave, we can call out power, we can not be afraid that if we burn a bridge over doing what's right, that's going to ruin our career forever. It didn't ruin my career at all. It didn't do anything, right? And in fact, Drew ended up backing off of starting the show again. So I think that was one of the coolest moments of my life, though, this particular time, because it just brought people together who love people. And I think that's what's at the heart of all organizing, whether you're in the union or out of the union. It was like people finding other creators and being like, whoa, I really appreciate what you do. That's a really cool thing you do.
Yeah, and I think it also demonstrates a message that I think all of us as labor leaders hopefully are pushing out, and we should push out more, which is reminding people that they do have power.
Yeah.
And to not let corporations or big media make them feel like they don't. And I think that's a great example. And I mean, obviously you have a lot of followers, but you don't have to have 3 million followers on TikTok in order to get a message out or to make change, right?
In fact, a lot of the people, so if I'm like the band leader, right, the entire brass section had like 5,000 followers, and they were some of the most like important folks because they're reaching into those niche communities. And what they were inspired by was like, if SAG-AFTRA can do this, right, this group of creators and creative people who are oftentimes looked down on or told that they're not enough or professional or it's not a real job or whatever, what can I learn from this and bring it to my job? And we saw a lot of crossover and inspiration in the way that creators maybe learned about organizing and how important contract language is and what a strike is and how it is a last resort thing and what it means to take care of people on strike. So then when we were talking about the John Deere strikes, well, they were all excited to talk about it because they had the language. They felt included, even though they weren't in the union. We could support John Deere. When it came to the railroad strikes, I was talking about railroads. I don't know shit about the railroad, but I knew how to talk about the strike. You know what I mean? I knew how to like point to the right people and say, this is unfair. This isn't right for us. And when it came to the port strikes, I had worked my credibility up into enough of a frenzy that I do have a great relationship with the White House. And my message to them was like, Joey, my guy, my boy, you love me so much. Don't put your finger on the scale like what happened with the railroads, right? Just wait 5 more minutes. Let the port people do their thing, right? Like, don't get involved. Everybody's gonna be mad at you again, all right? And we want the kids to love you. It's an election year, all right, my boy? And he didn't, right? And the port people got what they wanted. And so it was like lessons learned. But all the people, 170 million Americans are on TikTok, felt included in those port workers getting their due. And that's just like, now we're gonna do it the next time, right? Power builds on power builds on power. And for a lot of them, it started with being exposed to organizing through that SAG strike and the camaraderie we built on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like our use of these direct channels to the public are going to be more and more important over the coming years. And what we've seen just in the last month or 6 weeks of, frankly, media companies not exactly asserting their independence, let's put it that way, in terms of the incoming administration, et cetera, it's concerning. And so I think having that direct channel is so important. Can you give some advice to the folks here about if you are, let's say you're a union local, or even a national union, and you want to be as effective as possible in connecting with people on social media, what advice would you give as someone who's got a lot of expertise in that area?
I think in general, the thing we need to keep telling each other is don't submit in advance. Like, don't submit in advance. So many folks are like, Trump's coming in, it's gonna be so difficult. Everything is over. And I'm like, it's not over. He's already been president once. We did this one time. it wasn't as maybe easy or we didn't have the direct connections to the White House or administration as we did before, but we don't submit in advance. We hold the same standards. And I think in making sure that anybody who's in a power position does feel included in the way that we're making decisions will be important. So what I try to tell creators now is like, don't be so snarky about the way you talk about the new administration if you want them to listen to you. Unfortunately, you do have to play like a little bit nice in the sandbox when we're doing stuff. We don't submit, we don't make excuses for authoritarianism, but we don't have to like do the greatest clapback, right? To like get our point across. Sometimes that could be fun, but doesn't get a lot done. But actually, that's my question for you. What do you think we're going to do with an administration who is decidedly anti-labor and pro-tech, what future they are offering us? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think one of our greatest strengths has always been turning their tools against them. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel like it's so important to use the technology tools that are available to us to actually amplify our message, as opposed to, letting them take that floor. And I mean, there have been so many times where, for better or worse, in the past, we haven't challenged things that have turned out to be problematic, whether it's as simple as letting somebody use the term right to work. Like, we should we obviously fight that, but letting someone choose the way we call something really is problematic because it sets things up in a certain way in people's minds. I mean, that's just one example. So I feel like what we really have to do is, sure, we have to be strategic, and obviously we have to choose our battles, and we have to make some allies that we maybe don't love, but who can help us get what we need.
MAGA's about to be pissed off, Duncan. Let's be real, okay?
Yeah.
Those people voted, like the organizer here was saying before, for a life that was better. Once life starts to not be better, it's suddenly we become like strange bedfellows, right? We're like, okay.
Yeah, and we shall see if that actually plays out. But I think whether that does play out that way or not, I think we need to be proactive and really take the floor. And I think we can and absolutely will do that. And I think part of one of the beautiful things about you being here, and I hope that folks in the room get a chance to talk to you one-on-one after this fireside chat too, is all of us can be better and more powerful in our communication to, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, but everybody. I mean, it's not just limited to them, but we need a strong future of the labor movement as well as a strong present of the labor movement, and being able to communicate we can't make everyone come to us. Like, we can't force people to accept our mode of communication. We need to communicate with them in a way that resonates with them, and you do that so well. So that's one of the reasons I was so glad you were willing to come do this, because I think there's a lot we can learn from that in the labor movement in general.
I mean, I grew up in a motorcycle gang family. I don't know if you are aware of motorcycle gangs, but one of the fun things about there's like the family that is the actual club, right? But then in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they started doing like affiliates, like supporter of, lover of, sweetheart of the Hells Angels. And that is really empowering to people, right? They don't necessarily want to be in the club because, but they want to be protected by the club, or they want to be associated with the club. And I think something that perhaps unions can do is there is something cool about calling out your numbers, right? Local 266, local 801, local whatever. Trying to find a way to say, look, I know that you're not by trade an engineer, let's say, or a culinarian or an actor or whatever, but we're going to create a sweetheart group for you guys, for like our supporters who are like 801 ride or dies, right? And let them buy merch and let them come to your strike and let them donate to your cause and put them in the club, right? They're not jumped in, but they're there, you know what I mean? Because it takes the public support, but that kind of stuff goes a long way. And I think that that is something that we can certainly do to expand upon how many people are interested in your cause without them having to work in that particular industry. And so if your particular local or union is big in a certain area, right? Start to find your sweethearts and your affiliates and your ride or dies, right? And invite them in and let them know why this is part of the broader community. And like, our kids go to school together, right? And and we all want to be able to afford the hockey equipment. So dad needs this job to like really be paying, right? So I think, or we need the nurses union to get what they want because your snot-nosed kid is definitely going to show up here, okay? So you can't be in the nurses union, but this is why you should support us. But consider the Hells Angels sweetheart side of it if you want.
All right, hey, another takeaway we'll put on our
You didn't know I was going to say that.
I didn't.
It just comes to me. This is
great.
being recorded, isn't it? That's great.
Well, hey, if it works for that, we got to take our good ideas from anywhere we can find them. Now we are obviously at CES, and so you've actually said, which I thought was funny the other day. I think it was on when we did this IG Live together. You said, I'm not really a techie person per se. So what made it important for you to be here at CES? Because you've spent more than just today. You've been actually here checking things out. Yeah.
I've been around for the week. I listen to a podcast called Behind the Bastards. Does anybody like Robert Evans, the journalist in the Behind the Bastards podcast? So they have a show called It Could Happen Here, and they were talking about, last year, I remember CES, they were talking about AI surveillance and police drones. And so I was very interested in like how that was shaking out for this year because of course that kind of technology has the ability to hamper things like protest strikes and just to generally bother people like while they're, if the police drone is going to a crime, but it's taping the entire way, what if it catches me like smoking weed in my backyard? Like, am I in trouble now? I was just like, I wasn't doing a crime. So I don't like that surveillance thing. So that was one of the things that I most wanted to check out. I also think it's good to have an eye on the nerds. The nerds are the cool ass people in the world, and there's going to be a lot of them here. And so I was really excited to like just learn about the way that people who are tech and computer and innovation people are thinking. Because the way I think about AI, it like scares me, right? What I see in AI is a lot of displacement. There was this idea of like Facebook had of creating AI influencers to sell products. Well, that's certainly going to disrupt the industry that predominantly feeds black women, queer people. We own that industry, and so I was like, okay, let's see what's going on with that. But oftentimes at the heart of a lot of these technologies is somebody with a really good idea to improve the world, but the sort of they're not totally dialed into the social peer-to-peer impact of it. And so I think just like your high school cafeteria, it's important for the jocks to sit with the nerds and the nerds to sit with the cheerleaders and like the book clubs to sit with the hockey team, because we do have to exist in a society again together. And so for me, I really wanted to kind of like visit the folks that I feel I could not possibly understand, because I want them to understand me and see me as like a core part of their society when they're making decisions about such fast-moving, investable technology. I also wanted to count how many times I heard military and civilian applications, because that spooks me out a little bit too. So mostly I came to scare myself, and when you face your fears, sometimes you can find that like glimmer of hope,
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think that's what we're all doing here, which is, when you walk the floor of CES, it can be both, it's fascinating for sure, scary for sure. Some parts of it are exciting and encouraging. I think it really depends. And I think in the prior panel, somebody said, it really depends on what the technology is going to be used for, how it's going to be used. That's what really determines how we react to it. And so getting a sense of that mindset on the part of the companies that are out there pushing for this is important, I think. But I would also just say, you being there in this last part of what you said, and this is true for everybody here, you being there also sends a message. Like us being here sends a message. It doesn't go unnoticed, I know. And there's people in this room who've sat in rooms with big corporations talking about AI, talking about technology, and helping them moderate their exuberance for just, it can be done, so it should be done. And hopefully we can get a little bit more of the should it be done considered, I think.
We also have to like reward the decision makers in these big corporate spaces with reminding them of what it was like when they were coming up. We're never going to have like a 50th anniversary celebration for a robot worker, but we do have them for the people that we know and love who spent their life dedicated to that particular industry or job. And so I think we need to remind people that those human celebrations matter. And while having people work jobs is a little bit messy, it's also the best. Like, it's the best. And so, the smooth talking folks from San Francisco or Texas now can get people with money going and feeling like they're going to enrich their lives by giving all of their money or all of their investment to these tech innovations. It's going to be less messy. There's less people. It's more streamlined. It gets to a point where things are too streamlined. Like my grandma used to say, skirts get so short before the maxi dress is back in. And I think we are seeing a lot of people reject these like severe technologies because we like doing the work and we actually like being messy and we like meeting people and we like feeling like we help somebody. And so I think transitioning this conversation away from like how can we sterilize the world to how can we really enjoy each other once again? How can we like break down that awkward social stuff and like really appreciate each other's craft and work is something that I think that these decision makers also should recognize as currency and value.
Absolutely well said. You know, I think one other thing that you said, that we talked about the other day that I just think is so powerful and really important for folks here to hear is, you know, as we launch into this next period where we're going to have a lot of challenges to deal with, it's also really important that we have unity and that we have, support within the labor movement. And sometimes, and especially I think we've seen this on social media, this can happen, or in any forum where people sort of deliver their views anonymously or without having to really be responsible for them, a certain level of toxicity can develop that's not healthy for anyone. Tell me more about your thoughts about that, because I think it's really important and refreshing.
So they have dubbed me the nice side of the news, and I always thought that was like kind of funny because like I'm very nice, but I'm also like not a pushover. And so, but I think part of it comes down to expecting that your audience is smart. They can get what you're talking about, and that they really just want the tea. They just want the gossip part of what's going on, really. Like, and that's why I think Under the Desk is so popular, because we could have something absolutely off the walls happening in the news or in the public discourse, and I can kind of like diffuse it pretty quickly. Example is last night. They talked, every channel has McDonald's is rolling back their DEI programming. Well, every major company is going to have to roll back their DEI programming because of a SCOTUS decision that was handed down last summer that banned DEI and affirmative action. But the way that the media will present it oftentimes is to slow drip it because they know that makes people mad and that makes them tune in. So my thing last night was like, hey, pro tip for the coming year, every company in the world is going to roll back their DEI. It doesn't mean that you as a person who might have identified as a diverse candidate shouldn't apply for that job. Shouldn't believe that you're not going to fit in that place or that they hate people that are like different. That's not true. It all comes back to this SCOTUS problem and the conservative-led backlash to anything that was like diversity. So now folks can kind of like relax with that and they trust me. You can do that with your movements too. People are hearing so much more about organizing and labor and strikes and what's going on, and they feel like the world is unstable in some cases. We need to talk about the wins as much as we talk about the fight, and I think that's what's going to addict people to your particular message, is celebrating those wins, bragging about yourself, talking about what you won, talking about what those wins mean for other people's negotiations, and how that again brings us back to like a collective society. Even Elon Musk complained that people weren't being positive enough on X, because at the heart of it, even though they like to pretend that they are like automatrons, they are people. And so bringing it back to people, I think, is always going to be a great message and keep us kind of sane through this time, and recognizing that our like fight or flight instinct is something that news media and corporate media constantly want to trigger for addictive attention spans. And so try to calm down, recognize you can't save everybody and save everything, and you can talk to people super directly and quickly without having to give them like a whole entire backstory or sell why they should like you. Just assume that they do like you and they agree with you, and then tell them what you want to say, because you'll get it through a lot more quickly. Sometimes when people start a TikTok or a message and they're like, hi, I'm B. Spear and I've won several awards for original journalism and I met the president, you're like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. Like, what do you have to say to me, right? Like, why are you here? Just tell me why I'm here. Tell me what I get out of it. So I would say like go a little quicker with your messaging and assume that people are already on your side, because the people are on your side.
Oh, that's great. Now I want to just ask you, I mean, when we've talked about tech, we've talked about AI, creators like yourself also, there are AI tools being pushed out to you on a daily basis. How do you decide, knowing that obviously what you bring is is the unique element. I mean, there would be no algorithm would have ever come up with under the desk news, right? We know that. So where do you draw the line? How do you choose to implement AI in your workplace, since you have control over that, or do you have control over that?
I don't, and that's why I don't have as more money. Period. Okay. We got to a point. I've done Under the Desk for 4 years. I've made good money at this, and I spend an astronomical amount of money on talent because to me, like, that's how it goes, right? Like, even in the kitchen, I could have like probably like brought in bread from somewhere, brought in prepared things from somewhere, but I just like hired a guy or gal who would do that in-house, and it would be better and we would enjoy it. So for me, I reject the idea of replacing talent and human creativity and time with AI tools. Like, I could get aggregators to do the news for me. I could get, ChatGPT to read a bunch of stuff and spit out a script for me. I've never done that. I won't ever do that because there's nothing that brings me more joy than when Jed Bookout, my researcher, calls me and he's like, "Did you know Mike Johnson has a podcast? I just listened to the whole thing." And I'm like, that's probably 20 hours of work. Perfect. At what I pay him, that's awesome. I'm so glad you listened to that. What did we learn? You know what I mean? And like, that's the thrill of being alive. So for me, I'm like, again, I'm old, right? Like, I'm like old in my heart. And
that's like when my 19-year-old tells me she's old.
I get $1 and I'm like, okay, who could we like give that $1 to do some cool work or talk to us on? And that's the way that I drive things, and I think that people like that. And I've always paid people for what they do, whether it's moderate for me or they send me a tip or a story. If that video that I make makes $6, I send it to them. Because I think it's about that sort of like collectively rising all the boats, especially as we're building this industry. There's a lot of money going around. It does me no good to buy $1 million house if I'm going to sit in it alone. So I'd rather just like, I knew early on I only wanted to be medium famous. And so I just stay medium famous and employ as many people as we can.
Well, and I think that's perfect because we are now out of time. Unfortunately, I have really enjoyed this conversation. V, thank you for being here and doing that for us.
Let's give you guys are doing.
Another round of applause.
Woo. And claps for SAG and Duncan.
Thank you so much.